My goodness, we joined this broadcast from me to you, having already started my Coke because, well, I had to go turn off the air conditioner right there because it was, well, it kicked on and it was making too much noise. That's part of the problem with being a YouTuber in the summertime, you know? So, this is actually take two, because I aborted that one like 10 seconds into it. I was like, no, I'm not going to make this video with that noise. Anyways, this is now my response to Republican National Convention Night 3, 2020. Just like the DNC, on Night 3, they highlight the vice president, which I wonder, is there somebody who just looked at like previous years, saw what they did, and decided to do the same as far as the lineup? I wonder. Looks like they're following the same template for each, as far as who speaks on what day. There's like the president's wife day, and then there's vice president day, and then the last day is for the nominee for president, right? That's the template that they both followed for the last 3 nights. So yeah, I thought this was going to be actually a very quick video, because the night started out to be a snoozer for me, but then when Mike Pence started talking, I was like, oh holy shit, this is a big reaction that I'm having to a lot of the shit that he's saying. So he was the featured speaker of the night, so we'll get to that. But that just stretched this video to like twice what it was gonna be before he started talking. So first, there was a segment about military to this that started it off. I was looking at Representative Dan Crenshaw with the eye patch from Texas. A lot of people just respect him for being a Purple Heart veteran. Then there was retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, who in his talks he said, isn't Trump like the president of peace who's brought troops home, and didn't he do everything that he say he was going to do? Which, no, there's actually a little bit of a problem there, because we have pretty much the same number of people deployed that we had under Obama, and yeah, we almost went to war with Iran right before we had to start dealing with the coronavirus. So, no. I mean, he killed Soleimani with a strike that rivaled Obama killing Osama bin Laden, right? But that strike was about to set off a war between us and Iran, and if it weren't for having to handle the coronavirus, we were probably headed in that direction, right? So, yeah, he's, former General Kellogg, he was like, isn't Trump the president who's stopping the never-ending wars? And I'm like, well, no, we're still in Afghanistan. But then he says, like right after I'm thinking that there's peace talks that are going to happen in Afghanistan next week. So, he's telling us, like, hasn't Trump been the president of peace, basically? And then he's giving us, well, there's going to be peace talks next week. Well, you don't get credit for what's happening next week. But it was actually like breaking news. Like, I have not heard about that before that speech. So, yeah, it's news to me. Great if it happens. Then there was a big segment on women's suffrage, and it highlighted like Susan B. Anthony voted Republican, and like 100 years later, Trump, he signed unconditional pardon for her for, posthumously 100 years later, basically to take credit for women's rights movements in the past for the Republican Party, where, nowadays, since the parties have kind of flipped, and now the Democrats are the party for, like, civil rights and minorities and women and all that, the largest protest that you can see annually is the We Are Women March. And they are very much anti-Trump. Right? And so when I'm seeing all this, I'm like, no, you guys are not the party for women's activism. You're just not. And you're trying to be what you're not. And I don't think that anyone who is a women's rights activist is going to be fooled by it. I don't see it. Then there was Kayleigh McEnany, and she's like the White House press secretary now, which we've had a lot of them. It's hard to keep up with who's who in the Trump administration, but she said that Trump's an awesome guy because he cared about her, and when she was having her breast reconstruction surgery, he called concerned. And yeah, I know that she meant it in not a creepy way, but I was just thinking, oh well, of course he's concerned about her breasts. It was funny to me. Then there was Karen Pence. She also is a former school teacher, and apparently is also going back to work symbolically, just like Joe Biden's wife, Jill Biden. So there's that. She told a lot of non sequitur stories about successful women and successful military spouse women. But it didn't really seem like there was like a connecting narrative to all these. But it did seem like a political speech. It achieved that, and she was well spoken. I just didn't get to the direction of all of these stories. Like, what was it building to? It never really built to any like really coherent message of like, vote for Trump and you'll get more successful women. It didn't really get there. So there's that. Then there was Kellyanne Conway, which she's now going through like she's in the news cycle because she's quitting the White House, and all I could think about while she was talking was her daughter on TikTok, Connie Conway, and how her daughter's been posting things about her mom, and then there was the announcement that she was quitting the White House to go be more part of her family and handle her family business, and Connie Conway's TikTok has had some videos come out that are like, oh, holy shit, her mom's about to go home to beat her ass, and she's scared, and she's now taking a TikTok vacation, and she's pretty old teenager, so I'm not that worried about her. Like, some people have to go through a couple of years of strict parenting before they can go out and be themselves when they get out of the house. But apparently the Conways have to go home and rein in their children because heaven forbid that their children might have different political beliefs than them. So I didn't even get what Kellyanne Conway was saying while she was speaking, because I was just reminded of, well, she's about to go have a bit of a time with her kid, and I'm betting that there's probably going to be some videos that leak from the Conway house of Kellyanne being stern with her daughter. They're probably going to make it out on TikTok. At least when her daughter gets out of the house, that'll probably all leak. So there's that. Then they had Coach Lou Holtz, who used to be the coach from Notre Dame, a Catholic university, and there were a couple things that he said that I had a problem with. First, he said Trump's done what he said he would do at every single turn, and no, he didn't. Mexico's not paying for the border wall. He didn't overturn Obamacare. He tried, but he failed. McCain's vote stopped it. There's so many different examples of Trump failing, and not doing what he said he would do. So there's that. And then later on the night, Mike Pence said something similar too. That it keeps echoing. Like, if they tell a big enough lie and then keep repeating it, that people are just going to start believing it, right? But Lou Holtz also said that Joe Biden is Catholic in name only. And again, they're attacking Joe Biden for being Catholic. Again, just like I've said on all these other nights, they're concerned about gods on their side, not your gods. Your gods are not allowed in our America. The real God is on our side, and that guy's Catholic. That guy's Catholic. I had a feeling this would happen, and it has. I called it. Also, I think it's of note that the NBA, the WNBA, and Major League Baseball, on the night 3 of the RNC, they decided to call off all their games to protest racial injustice in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and they're putting sports people up on their show. The coach of Notre Dame football, and today I've heard that NHL, who are in their playoffs, have postponed some of their playoff games just because of the same thing, racial injustice, protesting by the players. So, if it were football season, which doesn't start in this COVID year until mid-September, then we might even see some NFL games postponed, and sports is kind of like the Roman Colosseum in America. It kind of holds the country together. So to see someone from the sports world on this show, it reminded me of that. Also, Kenosha is in Wisconsin. So when they talk about bringing law and order to Wisconsin, it's again a lot of pandering to Wisconsin, just like the DNC and now in the RNC. Like, every night we're hearing about Wisconsin, and it's because it was a very big loss that Hillary Clinton had in 2016. So I noticed that anytime they mention anything to do with Wisconsin, then there was Elise Stefanik, representative from New York, and she had a pretty bland speech to me. Didn't really land with me. She mentioned Fort Drum, which reminded me of the speakers earlier. She talked about the military, so it's like this was military night, right? And then there was this guy, Madison Cawthorn. He's in a wheelchair. He's not in office now. He's a congressional candidate, but he was, man, for a guy in a wheelchair, he must have good diet and exercise, because he's got a chiseled chin. dude looks superhero-ish. Like he's in the military with workouts. Like he looks, you know, if not for the wheelchair, you would think that he was physically fit, right? And I felt from his speech that he was appealing to young people because he's 25, right? He was saying, you know, if you think young people can't do anything, you know, Washington had his first commission when he was 21, and anyways, he was saying these things, but he also, in his speech, mentioned identity politics and how they're ruining the country. So I feel like he's there to collect the young troll vote, right? And I don't underestimate this troll vote, because I absolutely feel like there was a slight percentage of people, especially in my circles on YouTube, but like there was a slight percentage of people who were voting for Trump just so that they could see people who were more aligned with identity politics on the left cry. They wanted to see salty tears, right? And they knew Trump would bring it. And so they voted for him. And that was their big issue that they wanted. They just wanted to see SJWs crying. And they got it. They've gotten 4 years of it. They got what they wanted. You know, whether or not they got everything else they wanted in the deal, I don't know. You know, maybe they've matured a little and they want something else out of their candidates. But, you know, 4 years ago, if you were a troll here on YouTube and you wanted to see guys like me have Trump derangement syndrome, you got what you wanted, right? So there's that. At the end, there was he worked standing for the pledge and everything, just like you know how Trump was against Colin Kaepernick kneeling. He's like, I'm going to stand for my country, and then he gets a walker handed to him by two aides, and they like held the walker steady for him when he pulled himself up to stand from his wheelchair. And then you know, that was the end of his speech. So he uses his overcoming his adversities as a political talking point, like show and tell. Good stuff, you know, as far as showmanship, but yeah, just like I'm afraid of Donald Trump Jr.'s beard, I'm afraid of this guy's chiseled good looks. He looks like a good candidate as far as looks go. He probably would have been a good poster boy for Hitler Youth magazine. Next, we had former NFL player Brewer. Jack Brewer. I'm not fucking editing this. This is going to be way too long of a video. Jack Brewer, who played on, like, I know he was on the Vikings, but he played on a whole bunch of other teams, like the Giants and stuff. The Cardinals. He got around. He was a NFL whore. He'd play for any team. He was not franchised anywhere. But he said the Republicans were the party that freed the slaves and put the first black men in Congress. And I'm like, yeah. And then after that era, the affiliations of the party flipped. Now the party that is more progressive for minorities is the Democratic Party, right? The Republican Party is not so much. It's just how it is. The stances they had flipped, right? For the last 40 years, it's been that way. And also, I'll just say about like the women's movement segment in the beginning, it was all black and white footage and black and white photos. Why don't you have Republican activist women footage from the era of color TV. It's because the parties flipped. What they stand for flipped, right? Now the Republicans are about oppressing minorities and immigrants and brown people, and any stance that you could have that would be, keep those brownies south of the border. Let's build a wall between us. That's what they have. Okay, so this guy saying that the Republicans are the party that freed the slaves, that's fine. They wouldn't have been in this day and age. Then there was Lee Zeldin from New York, and he said Trump did a good job with COVID-19 by supporting healthcare workers, and you can find a few healthcare workers that actually will stand up for Trump and agree. Outside analysts of the situation and the majority of healthcare workers maybe not, but it's only a slight majority of healthcare workers that disagree. The policy analysts and people who are looking at how many N95 masks we needed versus how much we're given, they vastly disagree, right? But I think one of the things you run into with healthcare workers is doctors and nurses get paid very well, and in certain tax brackets you find more Republicans, and in the lower tax brackets you find more Democrats. Party affiliation often follows how much money someone makes. So that's why I think them appealing to healthcare workers might be a little bit, it's a good strategy, but just, they're going about it the wrong way, because Trump did not handle this well at all, especially the timeliness of his response to COVID-19. We had months of advance notice, and it still hit us, and we were not able to, with more resources, do what third world countries have done in order to stop the spread. So we suck because our leadership sucks, because Donald Trump sucks. Getting enough reaction from me, you feel? Maybe? Okay. So then they had Laura Trump, Eric's wife, and I was like, oh, remember Pam Bondi talking about, nepotism in the Biden family? Why are we seeing so many Trumps? We've heard from all the Trumps. Why couldn't they find somebody else that wasn't a Trump? And what was Laura Trump saying? Oh, things are better for women now, which is more pandering to women. When they're not the party of. Maybe they're just noticing where they're falling behind in some demographics, and they're addressing it. Maybe that's the purpose for her to be on stage. But there's a reason why they're falling behind with women activists. Then they had Clarence Henderson, civil rights activist, who said, if it sounds strange that he's voting Republican, that you don't know your history. When I heard that, it reminded me of Joe Biden saying, if you're not voting for me, then you're not black. I'm like, it was so similar. Basically, again, I'll just say that the party of minorities has switched in the last 40 years. In my lifetime, is completely switched. Republicans are not pro-minorities, pro-civil rights. Just look at the Muslim ban on travel that Trump tried to put in place when he first got in office. He's not about civil rights for minorities. He's just not. All right. So then, about now is in this video. This is how long I thought the video was going to be. Then there was two speakers that really really, like, everything they said, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And that's Richard Grinnell, former acting director of National Intelligence, and Mike Pence, right? So, Richard Grinnell was actually, like, almost QAnon level, like, throwing out stuff that, like, I'd have to spend, like, 4 or 5 hours debunking everything he was throwing out there. It was crazy conspiracy theory shit that he was throwing out there, right? Like, okay, so first I'll just say he said that Trump will always stand with people who are fighting for their freedoms, and he was talking specifically about Hong Kong and Minsk and some other places. And I have seen in Hong Kong them holding up Trump Pence banners, right, that they make because their banners are made in China, because they outsource what should be American jobs to China, by the way. But so these Hong Kong people are about to have their freedoms infringed upon because China is trying to reintegrate them into communist China. And so they hold up these banners at their protests saying, we love Trump. Trump, please come help us. Has Trump ever sent troops to Hong Kong? Has Trump ever publicly stated that he's in favor of Hong Kong? Fuck no. He does not want to fuck with China like that, right? As much as you think Trump is our bully and that he can get things done by bullying other countries, fuck no, he can't against Xi. Fuck no, he can't. Right? And he knows it. He does not talk openly about Hong Kong in public. But Richard Grinnell says, oh yes, we will always stand with people who are fighting for their freedoms. Well, where the fuck are we? Why isn't Trump, for as much as he wants to say that Biden is in the pocket of China and he's in favor of America becoming communist like them, why isn't Trump helping out Hong Kong? Anyways, Richard Grinnell, in his speech, made the argument that nationalism is a good thing. And I was like, holy shit. Oh my God. He's like, well, you want somebody, when they're dealing with foreign affairs to think with, the nation's interests first. And I'm like, that's not what nationalism is. Fuckhead. When we talk about how nationalism can be bad, we're talking about Nazis. It's the conversation's going to go there, and you just made the argument that nationalism can be a good thing by completely giving a different definition for nationalism than what people are trying to say is bad about Trump. Next, he said that the Democratic Party forced out the outsiders and installed the ultimate insider and had to take him out of retirement to do it. And with that, I was like, fuck, he has a point. That's exactly what happened to Bernie Sanders. And God damn it, fuckboy's jumping on my nerve there. Because he's got me. He got me. Fucking got me. I call it like I see it. And that hit home right there. If the Republican Party would speak more about that, that might be a good thing for them, because it would, put that divide back in the Democrats where they'd be realizing, like, hey, wait a second, our platform doesn't have a lot of the things that we were fighting for anymore, because now we have a moderate instead of our progressive candidate that we could have had. And he was kind of helped out of the race by a whole bunch of collusion behind the scenes so that the progressive candidate couldn't win, just like he was 4 years earlier if they would harp on that, if President Trump would keep on harping on that, then maybe they would make some inroads just by sowing division with the other party. So, that part of the speech, nice job. So then next, he starts going full fucktard, right? And he's like, well, the Russiagate was false. The trying to connect Trump to Russia was false because I saw the intelligence behind the scenes. We're just supposed to take his word for it. But then he's like, Obama and Biden had a secret investigation of Trump, and really it was a national security thing, and those things have to be secret, by their nature, but it wasn't like they were doing something like spying on them like Watergate, but there was something there. But he gives on this air of like, I know something that you guys don't know, and then he never says it. Then he says that the Democrats have puppet candidates, and you never know who is actually in charge. But with Trump, you know that no one's going to boss him around. What hurts there is like, I want to defend Biden and Harris, but I know that there's some truth to that. I know that Obama was handed a list of appointees by big banks, and that Obama did it. I know about these things, and I know that all of the collusion that it would have taken to have all those candidates on Super Tuesday drop out and endorse Joe Biden was a massive effort by people that I don't know who it was, behind the scenes. So, again, like, while this guy sounds fringe, he's just like throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing if it sticks. That point, to me, I was like, man, I need to digest that. It's longer than this video is going to be, as far as like how much you could talk about that subject. So much to wade through in his talk, but a lot of it was like he came off like just basically somebody who got all of their politics from 4chan. Anyways, next was Mike Pence, and I've already almost spoken for an hour, but I'll say that Mike Pence's speech was long, and there were no flubs in it. He didn't trip over his words, and that makes the third debate in the debate series, the one that's going to be between him and Kamala Harris, to me, that's the debate to watch, because they're both pretty sharp. Not like the my old guy versus your old guy that is going to be, nights 1, 2, and 4. If these things ever even happen. So Mike Pence, his speech, the crowd again was like barely socially distanced, just like Melania Trump's speech out on the Rose Garden. But he was at I think it was Fort Sumter, and in his defense for like not having the people like totally socially distanced, a lot of them were like family members of each other. So like the way that you're looking at the crowd, maybe some of those chairs were closer together because it was like a bunch of family together, because there were a few different sections, but I counted all of like 3 masks in the crowd, like literally 3. So they're not big on masks in their get-togethers. So much so that the 3 that you do see doesn't really help. You know, you need more masks in the crowd than that for it to actually have a really good effect. Pence's family is very connected to the military. His kids serving right now. But when I heard that, you know, I know that he's trying to, like, the whole night they were trying to connect the party to the military, you know, and knock that out of the park. But what I was hearing was all of the family members he's talking about have commissions as officers. Where are any of the enlisted men? The people who come from poor backgrounds, who can't afford to go to a military school first to get their degree and then join as a commissioned officer. Where are those people? Not in Pence's family, right? So to me, there's a real class warfare thing between enlisted versus commissioned that I really felt just like was tone deaf in the way that he was announcing all of these military people in his family. He talked about the Veterans Choice Program, which I've benefited from as a veteran personally, and I don't know if that was in the works beforehand, but definitely has gone into effect in the last 4 years as Trump's been president. And some of my own health care, in order for it to be expedited and me not have to wait for it, it has been put out to care in the community, and I'm open about that. That is a win for this administration. Good point. He talked about Soleimani being gone, which, you know, they hyped that up as if it was as big as bin Laden being taken out by Obama, you know, and I don't know that it was, you know. I'm just trusting their intelligence on how he was behind a whole bunch of attacks on our military abroad. But what I do know is they brush over the fact that it almost started World War fucking III. We almost went to war with Iran. Instead of just taking out their terrorist general, we almost went to full, total war with Iran, and still may in the future because of that act. You know? We were headed there, and if it weren't for the coronavirus, we could have been right now mopping up the end of that nuclear war. Biden said that history records that Joe Biden disagreed with the operation to take out Osama bin Laden. I don't know where he's getting that. You know, I don't know who was recording the discussions behind the scenes, but I do know that it's part of the vice president's job to be devil's advocate. Like, are you thinking this totally through? You know, and maybe that's where it comes from. That maybe Joe Biden was thinking, well, it could affect this, it could affect that, you know. Maybe. But I'll have to look into it. But he says that Joe Biden was on the wrong side of history for everything, foreign policy. Wrong side of history. You know, and when you make it that blanket, I don't believe it. But maybe he was not in favor of taking out Osama bin Laden the way that it happened. I don't know. Pence said that U.S. moving the embassy to Jerusalem was a good thing, which I know at the time it pissed off a lot of people that we moved our embassy to Jerusalem because it's basically it's recognizing the politics of countries in the Middle East in a way that you know, it's all, the Middle East is a fucking shit show, but when you look at how Israel encroaches onto the territory of other people, when you look at how like some of these nation states just pop up out of nowhere and declare themselves, like the whole history of it, like how, you know, the British Empire hundreds of years ago was just like carving up different countries and then expecting them to exist the way that they carved them up. You know, when you look at all of it, it's just a big fucking shit show. And just moving the embassy to Jerusalem was a power play. It emboldened one side and it really pissed off the other. And there are cities in the Middle East that are holy cities that multiple religions lay claim to, right? You help one side, you're going to hurt the other. It's a no-win thing, really. It's a no-win situation. What it does say is like who your allies are. Pence mentioned the Second Amendment. He mentioned large tax cuts. I just let those go by because he's just brushed over them very quickly. But then he said, "We unleashed American energy." So, deregulated environmental protections about fracking. You know, and the flip side of that is, I actually like clean drinking water when I dig a well. You know, there are places in Colorado right now that Misty says we're not moving to. One of them is, you know, around Greeley. You know, we want more land around our house, but we don't want to live anywhere near fracking because we don't want to get poisoned, right? And they're okay with fucking up the environment, you know. He said that they made 500,000 manufacturing jobs in America, lowest unemployment ever recorded. I don't believe that, because I think that, you know, unemployment numbers are highly manipulatable, and even Obama was doing it. Basically, there's so many people who want a job but go long enough that they can't be counted the same way. You know, they're like, oh well, they're long-term unemployed, so they've gotten to the point where they don't want a job. We'll just call it that. You know, no. The unemployment rate is probably twice what they're reporting, and the underemployed rate is higher than that. But wages are fucking stagnant, right? Just because people have jobs doesn't mean it's a good thing, because they're slaves to their jobs because they can't save up enough money to afford to better their lives. You know, and they're living so close to poverty, you know, that if they were to lose the job that's keeping them from maybe doing something to better themselves, then they would lose everything. You know, Americans have no savings. You know, they're not going to say that. You know, Republicans, you know, being the fiscally conservative one, should be like worried about like why aren't Americans having savings? You know, why don't we have savings accounts? All right. At the end of this list of good things about America that he thinks that Trump had something to do with, he said, you know, for 3 years we made America great again. And then the coronavirus struck from China. Again, China. The blame's on China, right? The outbreak in China, far smaller than the outbreak in America. And we had months of advance notice. And we failed. And it's on Trump's hands. He said Trump mobilized from the outset, which is fucking laughable. Holy shit. To say that Trump mobilized right from the outset. There are montages of how Trump was speaking about the virus that have been put out by the Lincoln Project that show how he was ignoring the virus for a long time before he finally had to say, oh shit, this is bad, you know. And he was in denial when we were having cases ramp up in America. He was in denial and feeding America bullshit. Okay? Pence said that no one who required a ventilator was ever denied a ventilator, which I do believe is true. From all that I've known about, like, ventilator usage, that we reached capacity in just a few cities and never really went over capacity on these ventilators as far as people who use them. We almost did, but, like, we didn't. But other PPE gear, we had shortages of. And it was their fault. But, you know, ventilators were in the news because we might have had a shortage of them if we didn't get the virus a little bit more under control with social distancing and shutting everything down, right? So the fact that it was a news story for a while, but then it didn't really pan out that there was a shortage of ventilators because everyone who needed one got one, that's what he's going to go with. You know, ignore the N95 mask shortage, just talk about ventilators and how it turns out we had enough, you know. He talked about we'll have a safe vaccine by the end of this year. He said that boldly. We will have a safe vaccine by the end of this year. And for what it's worth, I hope he's right. You know, I hope we do get a vaccine and we can all go back to fucking normal. With a little tweaks, because we have found better ways to do things because of this. You know, always look on the bright side. But I'm not certain. I think that was a very bold prediction. He said a bunch about regular American stories and people who lost loved ones. He was just talking about regular Americans. And then he said, we're going to be opening up American schools. And then in the very next breath, he said, we'll continue to put the health of America first. And those two things are not exactly congruous, right? If these schools open up and then they have an outbreak of coronavirus, that's not putting America's health first. That's just being worried about parents who use school as daycare not having somewhere to put their kids so that they can go to work. Because you're worried about the economy because the economy tanking is bad politically for you. Then he said that rioting and looting is not peaceful protest, which is a dog whistle. Just calling it like I see it. He said, we will have law and order on the streets of this country for every American. You know, and he's saying this in the context of the current, protests in Kenosha and police shooting black people again, and, you know, militias and Proud Boy people shooting black people again. And there being sports protests where they're calling off their games because of racial injustice to protest. This is the context that he's saying this shit in. He said that the president and I know that police officers are the best of us. And immediately I envisioned a knee on a neck. because everything you say has a context, right? I'm like, not all police officers are the best of us. He said Joe Biden would defund the police and you won't be safe in Joe Biden's America, which came off to me as fear-mongering and a dog whistle. He said Democrats didn't talk much about their agenda last week, and that was a bold-faced lie. Because I watched their, all 4 nights of their convention, and they talked about their values and their agenda a lot. A lot. Now, there was no opportunity for you to have any effect on the agenda because of the changes because of the coronavirus. They already decided that stuff in July. But it is right there on their website. And he's saying, oh, well, they don't have any positions on things. That's project much. It's Trump that doesn't have open positions on things. It's the Republican convention that decided, you know what, we're not going to have agenda meetings this time around. We're just going to go with 2016 and go with Trump good. They put out a press statement about that. At least the Democrats tried, and they had like a little committee that met in July. On the Republican side, they're just like, we're just going to go with Trump again. Whatever Trump says. All hail Trump. Then there was Bernie Sanders says Joe Biden will bring the most progressive left. He'll be the most progressively left president ever. Sanders did say something like that. I don't believe it. And I believe that Sanders is just trying to save the effort to remove Trump by, showing support for the Democratic candidate. But really, those who wanted a progressive candidate, wanted Bernie Sanders, are very let down right now. And so here we have Mike Pence scaring his followers. But really, it's like, it actually makes me feel like, shit, I wish he was more progressive. He said Joe Biden will end fossil fuels and fracking. As if it was a bad thing. That's what he said. And he said Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China, which Donald Trump's been a cheerleader for a dictator called Kim Jong-un. And Donald Trump's been a cheerleader for Vladimir Putin. Pot kettle black. Pence said that President Trump secured our border and built 300 miles of that wall. And I'm like, just Arizona is wider than 300 miles. So, like, there's plenty more to do in that respect if you're going to build a wall that's, like, the whole way across. And Mexico's not paying for it. And do you guys not know anybody who's here undocumented? Because I do. And I know most of them come from airports. The wall is symbolic. They don't get here that way. They fly. And anyways, he said Joe Biden supports taxpayer-funded abortion right up to the moment of birth, which I don't know that Joe Biden is as brutal with his views on abortion as Mike Pence makes it out to be, but yes, he's pro women's right to choose. And the closest thing that we had to a flub in Mike Pence's speech was right at the end. he said, "We will make America great again." Again. Which, it reminded me of Joe Biden at the end of his wife's speech saying, this is such a wonderful lady, but he was stuttering. And so I was like, it didn't seem like he was making fun of Biden stuttering, but it was as cheesy as Hillary Clinton saying, "You need to Pokemon go to the polls. We will make America great again. Again." He could have done better. And, those are my reactions to RNC Night 3. And tonight we will have, hopefully, the last installment of this, and probably the most triggering, because it's Trump himself. And I will strap myself down and watch it for you guys and give you my reactions. So, see you tomorrow.